Jake Stuart with the National Sports Media Association. Today, we're back with Kansas Sportswriter of the Year 2021, Matt Tait. Matt, thank you so much for being here today.
You bet. Appreciate you having me. This is pretty cool. I like your background. Everything is good, man. How are you?
I'm great. I know you must be excited as obviously a Kansas fan. You're a Kansas graduate. You're a Kansas beat writer. I mean, obviously, there's a theme going on here. You're a 1 seed this year. First off, though, congratulations on your award, and thanks for giving us some of your time out of your obviously busy schedule.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's a very cool thing, man. I got a lot of wonderful feedback and compliments, and it was really cool to hear from all kinds of people after they announced this. So, you don't do these things. We don't get in this business for awards, but when they come, you always appreciate them. And I think as you get older, as I'm doing, you appreciate them even a little bit more, just because they sort of validate how hard you work and what you've been doing and things like that. So very cool honor. I'm super psyched to have received it and very appreciative.
Absolutely. Well, I want to take you back a little bit, back when you were first getting into writing, and what brought you into this industry? What made you want to be a writer?
Yeah, well, math and science, really. I despise both of those things. And I always loved writing and had a, sort of a creative vibe from my parents and in just my natural DNA, I suppose. So loved writing, loved English, loved all those things, and loved sports too. So the two were kind of an automatic pairing when I was younger, and more important than any of that probably was the fact that I was fortunate enough to realize at a pretty early age that no one was going to pay me to play any kind of sports. And
Sure.
I was able to find a way to stick in the industry and stay around sports and use some of my passions, like writing for that field and to kind of pair up with sports. So I've known since probably 10, 12 years old that this is what I wanted to do. I've been doing it for over 20 years now, and the fact that I still love it every day and still pinch myself that I get to do this stuff is it's not going away anytime soon. I appreciate this career and the job as much as I did when I was in my 20s, and just feel very fortunate to have found that path early on, and been able to kind of fulfill a lot of dreams, man. I mean, I used to in high school and junior high, I used to write out things on notebook paper. After the day after the NBA draft, I would write all the NBA teams' new lineups, and I mean, I probably should have been paying more attention in class. But it was probably math or science, So
It clearly paid off, though.
yeah, and so that used to love all that stuff. Obviously, the Final Four, and now here, however many years later, I've covered a bunch of NBA drafts and covered the Final Four and things like that. So it never gets old. It's always fun, and it's been a very rewarding experience, and I've had a great career so far, and hope it continues well into the future.
Well, Matt, this is your first award from the National Sports Media Association. I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but what does this award mean to you?
Yeah, I did, and really this award or any of the awards that you win when you submit an article or something that you've written or a series or whatever it is, any of those, when they come, like I said, they're great. And I think the biggest thing is they're just validations for the hard work that you put in. I think that some of my favorite and best articles have not won awards, right? But they've still been received well, and people have appreciated them or commented on them, and that means as much to me as anything. I mean, that's why we do this. But when you win an award on a national scale like this, it's certainly a great reminder, and it looks good, and it's going to be a fun thing to tell people for years, and it just reminds me and others of the hard work that we put in, and I'm sure everyone that's in my shoes here around the country and all the states and all the broadcasters that they're in the same boat. I mean, a lot of hardworking people in this industry, and it's very cool that we have organizations like this one that do take the time to honor those people and show some appreciation for that, because it's great to hear from readers, but you can hear from readers one day, that your article was really good. And then you could hear from the same readers the next day that you don't know Jack. So it's, you don't get to base it entirely on that, and you got to stay even keeling down the middle. But definitely it just is a validation of the time and effort we put into this. It is a lot of fun, but it also is a lot of work. And so it's just super cool to see that, kind of appreciated.
Well, you spoke earlier about, getting into the industry and just being a writer, having a passion for that at such an early age. I think you mentioned 12 or 13. Who maybe were some of your, who did you look up to? Some writers, maybe some mentors along the way. Who would you say you kind of look to for advice and maybe who you just looked at?
Yeah, that's a great question. I read as much as I could and read a lot of columnists and read a lot of national writers and read a lot of local people as well. I mean, I grew up in Fort Collins until I was 10, and then we moved to Kansas, so I'm a Colorado guy, a Broncos fan, Nuggets, all those Colorado teams, so read a lot of Woody Page's stuff when I was growing up and liked it and didn't like it. And that's the beautiful thing about a good columnist. They're gonna stoke the fire both ways there for people. So that was certainly one. Rick Riley was another. He was sort of the Sports Illustrated in its heyday right there. That Rick Riley article every time was a blast. But to be completely honest with you, I mean, I can name a bunch of guys like that, but to be completely honest with you, one of my best friends growing up from the time I was 13 years old, all the way through today. His name's Sam Mellinger. He was a columnist at the Kansas City Star for a number of years and just got out of the business. He's now working for the Royals. And Sam and I grew up together. Sam was incredibly successful, incredibly talented, and throughout our lives and our careers, we were kind of in step together. We both went to KU. We wrote for the high school paper together. We were on the same path throughout, and we did go different ways. He went the columnist route, and I went with, beat writing and now the sports editor as well. And so different, but we always stayed, in it together and kind of in some ways pushed each other. In other ways, just we're there for each other to kind of have that experience and shared experience. Someone in our friend group that kind of gets what we do, right? A lot of our buddies kind of think, hey, you go to the games and you write about it. That's cool. That's fun. But they don't exactly realize that our job doesn't start until the final buzzer goes off, really, and then we got to put another 2 or 3 hours of work in after that. And Sam obviously understood that. And so I always thought that was really cool. Again, I think he's a terrific writer and he was a great journalist and all that. But I always thought that was really cool to have one of my best friends on that same journey and riding that same ride with me the whole way. Can't say I picked up his style or stole anything like that from him, but just having that guy in your corner and me being in his was always something that I felt like was pretty unique. I don't know that everybody had that. And at the same time, I always felt very, very lucky to have it, man. It was super cool. And I'm very proud of him as well.
Well, Matt, what can you tell us? I know, there's far and in between these days. What can you tell us about being a beat writer, and what skills do you think it takes for those of our listeners that are maybe trying to pursue a path like you're in right now?
Yeah, it takes everything these days. It used to be a time where you could write and just write, but now you have to be a social media magnet. You have to be on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and elsewhere constantly, not only to promote your stuff and who you are and your brand and all of that, so to speak, but also to keep an eye out for story ideas and sources and all of that. So you have to do that. You have to be able to do podcasting. You have to be able to do video. We're doing some right here. And this isn't exactly for my job, but I've spent a lot of days looking at myself in this window here recently over the last few years. So I think you do have to be, to use a cliche, a jack of all trades these days. And I think that's really important because it does push people out of their comfort zone. Some people aren't comfortable on camera. Some people aren't comfortable doing radio or podcasting or whatever. The advice I would give is do it all and try it as early as you can and just don't be afraid of it. You'll get better. I go back and look at podcasts I did 10 years ago or writing that I did in college, and it makes my stomach turn. I mean, I'm like, oh God, terrible, but that's part of this part of this career, part of this job. You get better, and you don't ever stop getting better. And that's something that I think is really important, is to continue to push yourself to do that, but also just through experience and through, growing and maturing, it happens. As long as you're dedicated to it and devoted to your craft and all that, it'll happen. So yeah, don't ever be afraid to say yes to any opportunity, because newspapers, online outlets, whatever it is, even radio and TV crossing over into writing, right? Like,
Sure.
Those industries, those companies are all looking for people that can do it all, because if they can do it all, then that's one person who can hold a job and do a bunch of different jobs. And so it is wearing a bunch of different hats, and it can wear you out, but it is always fun, and you got to get creative and make it fun, and find new ways to push yourself and challenge yourself so that it is fun and not just repetitive and mundane and boring. So that's a big one. And then I think the other thing too is just, read a lot of writing, read other people's stuff, whether it's on your beat or not. I think journalists can't read enough. I think that's super important to help with your writing. And then for me personally, the biggest skill that I bring to the table is relationship building. I think that's the number one thing in beat writing. I mean, you absolutely have to be able to build those relationships, not only to get good stories and to get people to open up to you, but to get people to trust you. And for me, that's the biggest thing. I got into this because I love sports, but I also love people, and I love building relationships and telling stories and having someone trust you to tell their story because you've got a relationship with them is, it opens so many doors to such great opportunities and great writing. And so I think that's a huge one. And it's always been the biggest thing for me, is just build those relationships. And I talk a lot. So people, whether they like it or not, they fake it a lot. And, it's very good. Anywhere you are, you can find somebody to talk to that can, give you something that you might not even know you got during that conversation, but 5 months down the road, you're like, oh, I talked to that guy about that. Maybe I can explore that more or whatever. So, it's just putting yourself out there and being resourceful and building those relationships.
I like that, Matt. You said being a jack of all trades. I like the way you phrased that, as well as just having relationships and building on those. The last question I wanted to ask you, and this one's a little bit more of a fun one. Thank you again for your time as well. Looking at Kansas, obviously, it's been a kind of up and down road the last few years in the tournament. This year, they've got some solid talent in Remy Martin and Ochai Agbaji. What do you see as a ceiling? I know it's too late for our listeners to fill in their brackets, but what do you see as a ceiling this year?
Well, a month ago, I wouldn't have said very high. I really, I wouldn't have put them very far in my bracket. But this last 3 weeks, they've really started to turn a corner, and they were good before that. That's not a knock. They were a good team before that. But I think this last few weeks has really shown their ceiling, like you said, their potential, and it's been a lot about defense. It's been a lot about effort. It's been a lot about buying in to just, giving it everything you've got every single night. And I know that all sounds boring and basic, like you should do that in December just the same as you would in March. But just because you should doesn't mean you do, and sometimes it takes time, and guys have off nights or off months even. And so this group seems really locked in. They seem really loose and free, and they're having fun together, and they're playing together, and all of that. So I think their ceiling's as high as anyone's in the country. I think they can probably make a run. I think depending on when this comes out, I'll either look smart or like a fool, but I do think they're worthy of the number one seed. And I do think that they're in that mix, that small group of, I don't know, it's probably bigger than it is most years now, but 8 to 10, 12 teams that you could really make a case for winning it all. And of course, that's the expectation at Kansas. That's what they always do. And they always say it's you could win 20 plus games, but if you don't make a run in the tournament, you didn't have a great season. That's what they say is always the thing that turns a good season into a great season or a memorable season. And so, their expectations and standards are always that high. So this team, though, you mentioned Ochai and Remy, they've got, 5 or 6 other guys who have played in the tournament before. a bunch of seniors, a bunch of veterans. I personally think that's such a big part of March. I think the experience factor can be huge. And this is a group that's not only experienced, but also hungry, because for a lot of them, it's their last crack at this thing. And, you know, because of the way the last couple of years have gone, whether that's their team or the tournament getting canceled in 2020, you know, they haven't had a chance to put their stamp and create their legacy by doing well in March. And so this is their last crack at it. And I think that's contributing to them being locked in and laser focused and just wanting to finish it on as high a note as possible. So full disclosure, I do have them in my Final Four. And like I said, a month ago, I don't think I would have put them in there. I like their region. I like their bracket. And I like the way they're playing. So it's a very weird Final Four. You know, every year we cover the Big 12 SEC Challenge in the middle of January, and that's what my Final Four is. It's 2 SEC teams and 2 Big 12 teams. So I've got Texas Tech, Tennessee, and Kentucky in the Final Four with them. So
I like it.
They probably won't go. None of them will make it because I never pick a good Final Four. But I would enjoy that. I think those are all 4 great teams. But I'm just glad the tournament's back and it's normal and it's what we're used to, because everybody seems to really be appreciating that at a new level after having it kind of taken away the last couple of years.
Absolutely. You know, just waking up this morning, it felt like waking up and seeing Santa Claus and Christmas.
Yeah,
you know? So,
no doubt.
Well, hey, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. Congratulations on your award, the 2020 Sportswriter of the Year. Hopefully we'll see you in Winston this summer. That
sounds great, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And good luck to you in your career, man. Anytime.
Well.
If you need any questions answered or anything, holler anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much.